inclusion in either the general plan update or the draft EIR. Of the first groups, group number 2 was moved into group number 1, so it's now just part of the overall group number 1. And then applications 03-2007, 31-2007, 34-2007, and 44-2007 were moved from group 3 to group number 1. So those applications from group 3, the applications in group 2, and all of the applications in group number 1 became what we will now just refer to as group number 1. And those will be analyzed as part of the proposed general plan update project. They'll be shown on the land use map that's in the draft general plan update. They'll also be analyzed as the proposed project in the draft EIR. The applications and potential impacts will not be examined individually. They'll be considered as part of the programmatic analysis. And the scope of these amendments that are being included in group number 1 does not require any additional budget or time for us to address those as part of the program EIR. We'll do that as part of what we're anticipating. And the analysis of the land use map as a whole, including these general plan update applications, is accommodated. We made a budget modification request that's being reviewed by staff, and so it's all included in that, and that was prior to the board's decision on this. The general plan update applications in group number 3, with the exception of the applications moved to group number 1, were recommended by the board for environmental analysis only in the program EIR, not as part of the actual general plan update, but rather as an alternative land use map that would be addressed in the program EIR. And the reason for doing this would be to provide adequate coverage in the EIR that if you wanted to include any of these applications on the final land use map when you make your decisions on the project, you would have that flexibility to do so. You wouldn't have to go back and do additional environmental analysis. It would be done at the time of the EIR, so you'd have adequate CEQA coverage for your decision. And the intent of this would just be providing that broad analysis of all of the applications you may wish to consider. And in looking at providing these land use map requests as an alternative, we have to identify what is a CEQA alternative and what is just another option for land uses that we're looking at. The CEQA guidelines state that an EIR shall describe a range of reasonable alternatives to the project or to the location of the project, which would feasibly obtain most of the basic objectives of the project, but would avoid or substantially lessen any of the significant effects of the project and evaluate the comparative merits of the alternatives. The general plan update applications considered in group 3 would not fulfill these requirements of a CEQA alternative. The modifications, the additional applications, aren't designed to substantially reduce or lessen environmental effects of the proposed project. So they would be just a separate land use option that we look at in the EIR. We would also look at the CEQA required alternatives. And there would be additional budget needed to provide this programmatic analysis of the alternative land use scenario. However, the schedule would not need to be extended. We can do this analysis within the time we'd anticipated to prepare the draft EIR. Now moving on to the modifications to the groups that are being presented to you today. We'll first go over the recommendations that staff has reviewed and the applicants they've met with and their staff's recommendations for group number 1. And staff met with these applicants listed, and I'll go over those, and they're requesting that all of 5 of the 6 applications be moved to group number 1. And those include 04-2007, which is Snow Mountain, and the applicant and owner are Bob Simpson and Keith Gurney. And that request has been modified to now request RR10 as opposed to the previous request of RC. 09-2007, JCA and Don Mackin, that application has been modified to request RR10 rather than RC as previously requested. 14-2007, Anderson and Amy Wynn, the representative, was modified to request RMR20, and the previous request was RR5. 20-2007, Harwood and Company was modified to request RMR20, which was previously a request for SR. And 10-2007, Cullen Murphy was modified to request RR10 on 10 acres and RL160 on 93.2 acres. And when we get to the recommendation for this, there's also a finding that would need to be made for this specific parcel were it to be included in group number 1. And then the Moreno application was withdrawn at the request of the owner. So these 5 applications are being brought before you today for consideration on whether or not they should be moved to group number 1. And then I'll go through, I have some more slides to go through before we come back to requesting your formal direction. The applications that are brought forward for potential reconsideration, these applicants from group number 3 and group number 4 have met with the staff and asked if they could reduce or change the density of their land use change requests in order to be considered in group number 1. And application 01-2006 Apperson was revised from RR1 to RR2. Application 45-2007 Wellick was revised from SR to RR1. And application 16-2007 Logan was not revised, but the parcel size was corrected because the parcel size was initially shown to be under 40 acres, and the applicants identified that it's over 40 acres, so it could be subdivided. And application 25-2007 Fetzer was revised from SR to RR5. In conclusion, the program EIR would analyze group number 1 as part of the general plan land use map and as part of the draft EIR. Group number 3 would be analyzed as an alternative land use map in the program EIR. So in looking at how you want to move applications and how you want to move forward, that's the intent with the various groups at this time. The first request for board direction is regarding group number 1, and a request that the board direct staff and PMC to include group number 1 as amended today on the general plan land use map with the findings shown. The next request is for direction from the board regarding the applications requesting reconsideration. Should those be reconsidered? And if so, which group should those applications be moved to? And then the last 2 requests for board direction are for us to include group 3 on the alternative land use map for analysis in the program EIR. And then a final request for direction is that the opportunity for land use changes be concluded and direct us to move forward with the general plan update, preparing the draft land use map to show all of the applications as directed today, and then direct us all to move forward with the EIR as well with no additional changes to the land use map. So those are the 4 requests for direction, and I will go back to the first one where staff is looking for direction. And Phil, did you want to add anything?
Yes, if I could. Phil Gorney for the planning team. In regard to the referral applications, let me first say that in meeting with the applicants on the revisions, our objective was to reduce environmental impacts, reduce land use intensity, reduce density, so that those applications could have the opportunity, if the board agreed, to move into the group 1. We're recommending the 5 that are before you. As Beth indicated, the Moreno application was withdrawn. That gentleman, Mr. Thomas, is satisfied with the designation that he currently has. Now, saying that, I can go into detail on each of these, but at one point I do want to make is that in the application GPU 09-2007, Mr. Mackin, you may recall that that property is adjacent to and was once part of the Simpson holdings on the Eel River. And unlike the other applicants that we met with who gave us their concurrence, basically written concurrence, Mr. Mackin didn't do so. And I'm not certain if he wants to pursue any further with you his ideas, but our recommendation is that that property be classified as RR10, the rural residential 10, the same as the Simpson property. We've told you and we've told the applicants from the beginning that we would look at those properties comprehensively in toto, as a unit, if you will. So we did want to make that